Welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I founded an eco-conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. Now, I don't just make pottery, I make resources such as books and courses for other potters who want to be more eco-conscious in their pottery practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's about me sharing everything I've learned with you, and I can't wait to get started. Let's go! Hello, so before we get on with the episode, I wanted to tell you about two completely free guides that I've made just for you about pottery. And the first guide is called How to Make a Pottery Glaze. So if you've ever been curious about how to make your own pottery glaze, this guide will show you exactly how to make your own glaze from start to finish. It tells you all the ingredients you need. It tells you step by step how to make the glaze, how to stay safe when glaze making, and it's got a stoneware glaze recipe in there. And if you've been curious about how to fire pottery, I have also made a guide on electric kiln firing. So this guide will tell you all the different terms that's used in like kiln firing, and what they mean, and it also takes you through the exact firing schedule that I use to do my bisque firing and also stoneware glaze firing. So it's got all the temperatures in there, all the timings in there, and both of these guides are available from the Oxford Clay website at www.oxfordclay.co.uk/resources for potters. Okay, let's get on with the episode. Hi everyone, it's so nice to be back with you here on the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. So today's episode is about the concept of developing a second brain. And like, this might seem like a really weird thing to talk about. Essentially it seems a bit like it's a kind of knowledge management topic, but it's something that if you have any kind of like creative practice, say like, where ideas are coming to you, it really, really helps you. It's really helped me in my pottery practice. So I thought I'd love to share it with you just so that you can maybe you'd get some value from it too. So essentially the concept of a second brain is from a book that I read called Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. And it's such a good book. It's got so many amazing ideas in it, but essentially I suppose if I was to try and like summarize the book, essentially the idea is that you have one place where you collect all like the kind of information that you gather from different kind of things like, research you're doing on something, or, things that pop into your mind, or any useful information, say like links or something to, to like a website where you've read loads of stuff on it. Essentially, it's creating a kind of database of all these things, thoughts, research, data, in one place so that you can get it essentially out of your own brain. Okay, so the idea is that this frees up your brain to then do its like best job, which is like kind of generating creative ideas, linking ideas together, kind of being the CEO of that knowledge. So it's kind of like using that knowledge and implementing it in like a creative way. So if you have any kind of creative practice, this is like incredibly useful because it frees your brain up to do its kind of like absolute best job, in terms of like, your creativity is then kind of unleashed because you don't have your brain kind of like bogged down with all this kind of like, knowledge that you're trying to remember. So in pottery, I actually have this I was just going to talk you through the different second brain kind of systems that I use in pottery, just to really try and sort of help me organise all like my thoughts and all the information that I have kind of coming in, you know, different things I've read and different thoughts I'm having and stuff. So so the first thing to say is that I have a kind of digital second brain, and that's where I keep, so it's like a kind of, you know, digital, it's like a Word document, and I have like different like sort of parts of it where I'm just collecting different useful things for me in terms of my pottery practice. So it'll be things like, you know, any useful books that I want to read or have read, or it could be like links to websites, or it could be links to you know, businesses that I think I like help doing something like helpful that I could, you know, utilize the services of like another time, sort of thing. So I keep a digital version of that, and the reason I keep it sort of digitally is if they're kind of like, you know, web sort of links, it's much easier just to have that as like a link that then you can just go and you can go into that digital document and like press it, and then you can, you know, go to the web page you want to read about. So I also do things where I so like if I've listened to something which is really cool, like, or a book or like a webinar or something, I will sometimes, not always, but like if it's some really fantastic ideas that I want to remember, but I don't want to keep them in my mind, I will write them down in this digital document. So it could be like, yeah, so if I listen to like a really amazing webinar, I think these ideas are really useful, I'll kind of just try and do like a bullet point summary of them. So then I know that they're there if I want to like read them, they're not like lost forever, sort of thing, or I don't have to have the pressure of like remembering them in my brain. So another sort of knowledge management second brain thing that I do is I have a notebook. So I have a notebook where I write everything that I'm doing in terms of glazing. So I do a lot of like thinking about glazing, you know, I do loads of experimentation with like sort of different plants and their ashes. And I do, recently I've been testing a lot of like, you know, I've been trying to do like metal oxide tests. I've just done a whole series of tests using the metal oxide verdigris. It's like a form of copper oxide. So I've been testing different glazes and colouring them with verdigris, and I want to know that I've got that information in one place, because there was a time when I used to kind of do glaze testing and I would kind of write it in different places, and I had one kind of notebook where I was writing stuff in, and there'll be like another one or something else would be on a post-it, and it was getting like, I didn't trust basically that I couldn't trust that where the information was, and it was kind of like, it was stressing me out a little bit. So now I basically just have one notebook. It's one notebook, and I keep every single glaze test that I've done in this notebook, and I meticulously record sort of like, I do numbers on each glaze test. On the base of it, I press numbers into the clay, and then I will meticulously write down the recipe in this notebook. So I always know that they're in one place. So that's really, really helped me just to kind of know that I can always go back to that single point of reference and it will be there. So another second brain that I use is the second brain for all my podcasting ideas. So the way I do these is I keep them in this one folder, and I actually have like a paper copy, which is, I mean, perhaps this is not the most efficient way of doing it. You know, perhaps I know that some people have like Excel sheets and stuff, and they can, you know, they write it all out in Excel, and they can kind of rearrange it and like, you know, see the year at a glance. So that probably, maybe that would be a good way of doing it. But I just find the process of having like a paper version, like a sheet of paper where I write down the idea for the podcast, and I'll write loads of notes, just holding up this kind of like scribbled sheet of like loads of random notes. I keep them on one, so it's like one podcast episode equals one sheet of paper. And I'll kind of get ideas quite often when I'm sort of like, you know, just like walking around, and then I'll be like, oh, the podcast idea. So like, you know, like you can, I guess, like, you know, type these into your phone or something, but I quite often will have like a sheet, a podcast sheet with me, which is basically just a piece of paper with like kind of like different sections of it. It's like title, what else does it have? It's got the title, it's got like what it's about, what the episode's about. It's got like just like different tick boxes, like whether I've recorded it, whether I've edited it, whether I've done the kind of, you know, photo for the title card, whether I have scheduled it to go, you know, live, in terms of like it getting published. So I have all of those on, so I don't have to remember all of those bits. So yeah, if I'm out and about, I've got a sheet, I can just like write it down on the sheet, the idea, and then I keep all of these sheets in a folder, and then I can have a kind of like systematize the folder. I have the system in the folder where basically once I've done an episode, I can move it to a different section of the folder. So once I've recorded it, it goes in one section, and once I've published it, it goes in another section. So again, I find that really helpful because I know that this one folder has all my podcast ideas in it. So it really helps me to kind of associate that folder with like, this is my podcast ideas, you know, these are where they're all kept, and I always know that they're there. So I find that like massively helpful. And if I get an idea, I know where to put it. So I wanted to just talk to you about 4 of the really amazing benefits of keeping a second brain. So like I said, there's so much in that book, Building a Second Brain, and there's also a course I think online that you can do as well. But but essentially when I read the book, I sort of like extracted 4 ideas I thought would be like so really good specifically for potters or creatives, for anyone who's getting ideas for stuff. So here are the 4 ways in which having a second brain is like really helpful. Okay, so the first thing is that by getting all of these kind of practical ideas or, informational ideas out of your brain into somewhere like piece of paper, into somewhere digital, it allows you to use your intuition more. So it's like you're not like bogged down with like almost like the cerebral functioning of your brain is kind of like, it's okay, your brain can just be like, your brain can rest because it's like all those ideas, it's they come and it doesn't have to hold them, so it can just like relax because you've like emptied your brain out of all these fantastic creative ideas, and it really allows you to then like connect with your intuition. So you can like kind of really feel into like what you want to do, what like you're interested in, because you're not sort of confused with all these like bajillion ideas in your mind. It really allows you to kind of pursue the one that you're like creatively most interested in, or just follow your joy really, in terms of like, what do I really want to be doing, and like really follow your intuition in terms of your creative practice. So the second thing is that you can really trust that your ideas won't be lost. So I think this is such a big thing for me because like I was saying to you, sometimes I get, I just get ideas and I'm just like, there was a bit of anxiety there for me because I don't want to lose that idea. My brain is kind of a little bit like, no, I mustn't forget this idea. So it's so good to have this second brain area where you can just make sure that all of your ideas are recorded and you can trust where they are, and you can just like, it's just such a nice thing to do for yourself because you know that your ideas are there and you can get them when you need them. So the third way that it's really good for creatives having a second brain is that for potters in particular, is that the more ideas that you think of and almost like process by kind of like getting them out of your mind, like putting them down, maybe expressing them, or putting them down on paper, putting them into your second brain, the more ideas will flow to you. So I have to say, I used to be quite skeptical about this. I used to think, I don't know why I thought this, but that creativity was somehow like, not like finite, but like, it's almost like it couldn't be cultivated by practice. I thought that things just came to you or they didn't, But now what I've realized is that creativity really is a practice, and that like the more you do, the more you practice just having ideas, getting them out, the more ideas will flow to you. And I really recommend that if you're feeling like creatively stuck, just make some really rubbish stuff, like with pottery, sometimes especially when I first started pottery, I would be like, I don't know what to make, I'm not sure what to make, and I would be like, I want to make something if it's like good, if it's kind of like stretching me, or in some way creatively, or I don't know, just wanted to make something that was actually good, so it wasn't kind of like a bit, kind of can be a bit demoralizing, can't it, when you're trying to make stuff and you're like, I want it to look really good. But yeah, what I'd really recommend is just going through and just making some stuff, and just just generating ideas and practice, write them down, and just the more you do, the more will flow to you. There's this thinker called Simone Sol, and she has her own podcast, and she's very influential in the kind of marketing space and stuff. And she often talks about how quantity makes quality. So like the more ideas you practice and do and think of and write down in your second brain, the more will come to you, the more quality ideas you'll get. So it really is a fantastic practice just to be like, I'm gonna get all these ideas out, I'm gonna have all these more ideas, and just to think of it as like very abundantly, more ideas will come to me, from my creative practice. So the fourth reason is that having a second brain as a potter is brilliant, is that it really allows you to free up your brain for linking ideas together. So this is a really essential strand in the book by Tiago Forte, Building a Second Brain, because the idea is basically that your brain is very good. It's at its highest level. It's fantastic at kind of linking concepts together. And the more you support your brain with like taking away that work it has to do, like remembering stuff, the more it will free up your brain to be able to do its like power work, which is basically linking amazing ideas together and linking like creative concepts together. So I really, really agree with this idea, because what I find is that the more kind of research I do, and then I kind of just, will kind of record that research somewhere, if I give myself like a bit of time, I find that like sometimes ideas will kind of generate in the background, like on the back of these ideas, but it's only really if I haven't got loads of other things to remember that can happen. So it's often when I'm kind of just doing something, say like it could be just on a walk or something, just something where I'm not having to like think loads about something, I'll find these like the way ideas link together really just comes to me in those moments. And I find it very supportive to know that I always have the basic strands of those ideas like written down, codified, so I can always return to them if I need to. But it just really frees up my brain to be like doing this kind of work where it's kind of like more like, thinking about concepts and thinking about how things work together. And yeah, it's very supportive, I think, for creatives to be able to empty all the kind of day-to-day stuff, all this stuff to remember into your second brain. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I've loved talking to you about developing a second brain. So, you can do it in a way that works for you. Like I was saying to you, I've got paper versions. So basically I just, your second brain could essentially just be like a notebook. I have to say I found it so helpful, and just to have, to be able to know where to go to get all your stuff, to get all your ideas is so helpful. So I've loved talking to you about it, and I hope this idea helps you in your own like pottery practice. And really looking forward to seeing you on the next episode, and I'll see you soon. Happy potting until then. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me for the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. If you're interested in learning more about Oxford Clay or eco-conscious pottery, there's so much for you on the Oxford Clay website. There's books, e-courses, there's a blog on there, loads of other podcast episodes, and I can't wait to share it with you. The web address is oxfordclay.co.uk. I'll see you over there.